That's quite a lead up here. Let's see. Okay.
Yep.
Okay. So when I emailed Mary back and I said, okay, I'll do it, I did work. I work until the wee hours of the morning putting things together. So, oh, I'm muted.
Oops.
Am I muted?
I don't know if we can. Yeah, we shouldn't. We shouldn't.
I muted you for a brief moment accidentally. Okay. I meant to mute someone else. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Sharon, go ahead.
Thanks, Ed.
Thank you. So I said it would be an attempt to connect seemingly disjointed facts and stories. And I could talk for hours and hours and hours about geology and glacial geology, but there's more to the story of the Milwaukee River Basin. So as Mary said, I first came to River Edge. I was a hydrogeologist. That meant I worked on a lot of groundwater contamination cases. I also did some stormwater work and some spills work, all sorts of work for the Department of Natural Resources. Got to do some resource investigations. It was a blast while it lasted. One of the things I did when I worked with the Milwaukee River Basin is that my good friend Marcia Brzezinski and I and others worked on a nomination, which the Milwaukee River didn't get, but it was a nomination for the American Heritage Rivers program. They didn't get it, but a great term was used by Jim D'Antuono. I don't know how many of you know Jim D'Antuono, but he was my supervisor at the time.
Yep, I know him too.
Yep, and he insisted that we put the term in, Milwaukee River is the life's blood. And we thought it was corny, but after doing all of this research, I'm thinking, yeah, it really is the life's blood of this area. So the other thing you should know about me is I did move up to Bayfield for 3 years, and that's when I sort of started becoming more aware of Native American issues in the state of Wisconsin. There's a great Native American population up there. So that's when I thought I would bring some of that into this story. So here we go. Oh, it worked. Okay. So a few quick facts about the basin. The Milwaukee River Basin stream miles in the main channel, 104 stream miles, greater than 500 stream miles, including tributaries. And the basin is located in portions of Fond du Lac, Sheboygan, Dodge, Washington, Ozaukee, Waukesha, and Milwaukee County. The land use varies greatly from urban to agricultural. If you go in the northern part of the basin, you'll see agriculture. But you'll also see a great urban revival story as you go farther south. A question is, what is a basin? And a river basin is just a portion of land drained by a river and its tributaries. And I wanted to get that groundwork in. And then what's a watershed? And a watershed is very similar to that, but it's simply the area of land that catches rain and snow and drains or seeps into a marsh, stream, river, lake, or groundwater. They're so interrelated, you'll catch me calling it watershed or basin in this talk. So we're talking about a landmass that catches water. This figure is taken from the Milwaukee River. It's the State of the Basin Report 2001. And I was on that team that helped draft that. So I felt I could use this. And you can see, and I think, can you see my pointer when I do that?
Yep.
Okay. Oh, ooh, very sensitive. Okay, so, okay. So you can see on here the okay, don't touch that. The east and west branches of the Milwaukee River, North Branch, Cedar Creek, Milwaukee River South, Menominee River, and the Kinnickinnic River are all the watersheds within the Milwaukee River Basin. And we'll go through that just a little bit. After, of course, I get the geologic past out of the way. So on the lower edge, the lower left-hand corner, you'll see a little cross section, and that goes across the state of Wisconsin. You'll see the red dashed line there. That's a little cross section for the state of Wisconsin. And as Kid Bradbury talks about it, he's the state geologist, he talks about Wisconsin having very, very, very old rocks in the northern part of the state. We have old rocks in the central part of the state, and we have very young rocks in the rest of the state. And in our part of the state, and in much of the state, we also have glacial geology, which really predominates our landscape here. I'm going to click on this little link and hope it works for us for a second, because I wanted to show everybody and give everybody the tools to learn more about Wisconsin's geologic past. And it worked, yes, okay, and it worked. So in our part of the state, we are over here in, and we can click on any of these. And I think since we're so predominantly Kettle Moraine, let's click on that. Hope it works, please. There we go. So you can see
Sharon,
here. Yes.
Sharon, you might have to click out of your PowerPoint. We can't see anything
Oh,
in
you
the
can't
PowerPoint
see it
right now.
Okay, thank
Right.
you. Let me go to this a second. Then let me escape. And let me go here. Now?
Not yet.
Can you see it? Okay, then we won't use that. We're fine. We're
Okay.
out of there. Yeah, we won't use it. All right. Because I'm a slow learner when it comes to that stuff. So I would invite you to click on this, and there's so much information that can be obtained from this website, the Geological and Natural History Survey website. In fact, I use it a lot. Also on this website, you can go through, and again, I'm sure this won't work, but the website over here shows the maximum extent of glaciers during the last ice age. And you can see on this portion of the screen, that's approximately, that little star is approximately the location of river edge. And we have different lobes. And what happened with the Kettle Moraine lobe is that there were two lobes that came together, the ice sort of stagnated there, and the Kettle Moraine was born. And that's about as much as I'm going to say about glacial geology and the geology of the state of the basin, except I stole this from our website, River Edge's website. I wanted to talk a little bit about the Ice Age landforms that we see in our area. And you can see that we have things we call moraines. We have, and you can look at the diagram. Every time I touch this, my slide moves. So you can look at the moraine. There are kettles, eskers, little wiggly snake things, and I'll go through and show you another little thing. Cames and drumlins. Let's see. So how do I, okay. Okay, starting at the left-hand side of the screen, there are different types of moraines in the state of Wisconsin that exist with glaciers. In our case, we have what are called lake border moraines. I'll get to that in a diagram in a moment. We also have kettles, and you can see how kettles are formed when kettle lakes are formed when a block of ice gets isolated, then it's covered by debris, it melts out and makes a nice depression. We have an esker, which is formed kind of like an under glacier river, and the stream deposits then just get left after the glacier recedes. And the came is sort of a reverse kettle. It's actually formed by a hole in the ice, and debris falls through the hole in the ice when the glacier recedes. This mound, this conical mound is left. And those are all more depositional type features. And then you have drumlins, and those are more, they're kind of depositional, kind of erosional. They occur within specific locations within a glacier. Okay, so my next slide, I wanted to show you some of these features within the basin, and this is the approximate side-by-side area. You can see, now hopefully it doesn't move everything again, good. Okay, you can see where my cursor is, I hope. Yep. And you can see the outline of the Milwaukee River. The Milwaukee River is kind of flowing nicely along the west side of the Kettle Moraine through like some nice drumlin fields in here. You can see all these little drumlins and hummocks and things over here. But the Milwaukee River is kind of meandering, and it came up against this big ridge. It finally broke through. it finally broke through and it skirted through here. Well, as the early explorers were going upriver, you know, they're going along this other set of moraines here, which don't show up as a really magnificent feature, but trust me, they're there. They're called the Lake Border moraines. And so the Milwaukee River parallels those, and then it kind of zips through where it could break through. And it's a west bend, aptly named. I thought that was rather clever. And this model was just there for the picking off of the website, off of the Geological and Natural History Survey website. Okay. We're moving on. You know, the people, we have people, and more people that have come through and have lived and have existed in what we call Wisconsin today. And some of the earliest evidence of that are for paleo, what our archaeologists, anthropologists call Paleo Indians. They're mound builders. And I was able to, during this talk, I was able to kind of unearth some information about where there were mounds historically and where there are still mounds within the basin. So we'll take a quick look at that. Checking my time. Okay, take a quick look at that. We also have, so those were like called the woodlands peoples. Then we have native tribes that were in the Milwaukee River Basin and still are. The Potawatomi are still here. We had explorers, fur traders, and missionaries come through. Immigrants / settlers. We had European groups come through. You know, we all know about the Germans that came through. There were Dutch that came through. You know, you name it, people came through, but predominantly German, especially in the Milwaukee proper area. We had African Americans come through. One of the earliest voters, it was here in the state of Wisconsin. African American voters was here in the state of Wisconsin. We have a large Latino, Hispanic population and a large Asian population grouped together because there are so many different Asian groups like the Latino, Hispanic groups. What did they have in common? They needed a nice place to live. Early on, when the mound builders lived here, they actually were more agricultural. They grew things. They stayed in one place more. And here's some information and resources. I don't think this will work, but let's give her a shot, shall we? Does anything different show up on your screen?
No, the color, it looks like an active link, but it's not showing anything on the screen.
Okay, so I will click on it a second. So the American Indian population in Wisconsin dated back centuries. They left their effigy mounds. Effigy mounds aren't necessarily burial mounds, is what I learned. And I think it's kind of cool that I got to learn that. These links will give you more information about the peoples in Wisconsin. We also have the turning points in Wisconsin history. Oh, I'm so disappointed. I don't know how to show this. Can somebody kind of like, I close it out?
Sharon, I would try, closing out of the PowerPoint and then.
Can I make a suggestion?
Yes.
You don't have to close the PowerPoint. You just have to go to share a screen and select the new screen and go back and forth. You follow what I'm saying?
Yeah, I do.
Mhm.
New share. Okay. All right, good. Yes, I do, Matt. Thank you.
There you
There
go.
you go.
There we go. Okay, so great. Well, let's then go back to that other one too. But so you can see from this, yes, now you can see from this site is that there's such a rich history here in the Wisconsin area, in the Milwaukee area of immigration, 19th century immigration into this area. And I wanted to go back then too, because then I can go new share, right?
Mhm.
I'll go back. I'm learning with you.
We all are.
Okay. Oh, I gotta do this,
Good.
and hang on, new share. And here, Oh, here. Okay. So this, can you see it?
Yes.
Okay, good. All right. So I wanted to just recommend that everybody take a chance and look at these sites. It was just fascinating to me to have the different perspectives. And this is all Wisconsin Department of Health Services site. They outline I'm highlighting it right now, but the first French and English fur traders, there was a big fur trading industry, like all over the state of Wisconsin. A French trader, Jean Nicolet, and the missionary Jacques Marquette came in. And they worked with the American Indians. Later on, though, in 1804, tribes were forced to cede their properties in the state of Wisconsin. So we're all living on ceded land these days. I'm going to go back here. I already talked about this. And new share. So I also wanted to point out African Americans in Wisconsin history, and indeed in our basin. It talks about, you know, the earliest record being someone who was massacred by the Fox Indians. But I do recall from putting together the American Heritage River nomination that there was someone in the state of Wisconsin who got to vote. And I just thought that was rather progressive. And then we fell backwards, you know. But this especially, there was a black fur trader in the Chicago area who was well known by our early settlers. And Milwaukee had a great harbor here. So I'm going to go back, new share, back to my PowerPoint. Okay, so each one of these populations, and I'll just move on because I've got a little timer on myself here. If you click on these, if you click on these, you will learn so much more just from those simple websites than I ever knew about what the history of immigration in the Milwaukee River Basin and indeed in the state of Wisconsin. I wanted to go over, because the mound builders left us some information, some existing mounds within the Milwaukee River Basin. Lizardmount County Park has a wonderful trail system there. I had to shift through very quickly, so I didn't get a lot of good photos. I went to the site, I think it was off of the Washington County website, and got this information. But this Lizardmount County Park is on the National Register of Historic Places. They have a wonderful display there, and it's a record of these early mound builders. And there's some thought after researching, and then there's another set of mounds at State Fair Park, which, you know, this year we won't have a State Fair, but it's right on the DNR grounds there at State Fair Park. Just wonderful examples of burial grounds that weren't disturbed. Unfortunately, there wasn't such a rich appreciation of history back then. And this is what I found, just some examples of destroyed mounds throughout Milwaukee County and throughout Washington County. Sad, there's a great loss, but at least we have this record that there were mounds here, and somebody bothered to take the time to document this. I think that's just such a rich history that we have. Just a second. This site, Encyclopedia Milwaukee, as I said, I was really researching everything I could. Milwaukee is known, and there were other Native American names for this Milwaukee. But I think the most commonly used definition for Milwaukee is gathering place by the water. There's a good earth place. If you can imagine, the Milwaukee Harbor estuary had, you know, lots of wildlife. We do have beavers coming back in the area, by the way. They had lots of wildlife and wild rice growing, and people live there. You know, the Native Americans live there. We still have Native Americans living in the Milwaukee River Basin. There's a lot. Of course, the Potawatomi live here, but throughout the state of Wisconsin, there are 11 tribes. And I think it's important for us to note that. So again, take a look at these information resources, timing myself here. For additional information about minority groups, the Hispanics were brought in. A lot of times were brought in to help work fields. And, you know, they were intentionally brought in and like today. I wanted to get to this because I found that this was really my connecting factor for a lot of the information. Dams, and more dams. There were some legal and some not. Mary's laughing. That's the only time I get to say dam, okay. Dams, and more lands. Dams, some were legal and some not legal. I have allergies, excuse me. And I found this publication on the UW Systems scanned in publications. And then like today, when we're trying to remove all of these dams on the Milwaukee River and in other areas of the state and in other areas of the state, this guy was sent out by the Geological and Natural History Survey to take a look at the water powers in Wisconsin. And I was only able to figure out how to do screenshots. So I made one just of like something that just kind of caught my eye, you know, because they were just sizing it up for economic means at that point. And I'm flipping through my notes. But it says, while the size of this river does not entitle it to be ranked among the large rivers of the state, its steep gradient, over 5 feet per mile, and strategic location in so fertile and populous a region should make it its many water powers of unusual value. And indeed, it was found to be of unusual value. What I found was a rich source in this document. And again, I invite you, I gave you the title and you can look it up. I did a whole bunch of screenshots. And what I found in summary, and I'll go back to my dams, and more dams, because I like saying it, slide, is that a lot of these dams were put in for, you know, they were grist mills, they were sawmills, they were nail mills. Much to my surprise, I thought they were just turning wheels and grist mills. But much to my surprise, I also found that a lot of these dams were actually generating low levels, but still levels of electric power. It was very interesting to research this. And the gradient here was very important because the gradient changes across the river. And there's one section of river we'll get to when I get through my pictures of the different locations that I sent my poor husband out to during a tornado watch to take pictures, that where the gradient is really quite different. And I hope I can remark upon that a little bit. So we'll get going here. Again, this is the Milwaukee River Basin. I wanted to throw this in here. I wanted to talk just a little bit about the drainage area of each, and I tried to in my pictures as we went through. When I went out one day, we went out together one day, and then I sent him out again to go out and take some pictures of some examples of dams that have been removed or were still there, or some restoration areas, whatever we could do in the time that we had. So the drainage area is quite remarkable for each of these. The Milwaukee River Basin total drainage area is 882 square miles. Not huge, but it's still really big when I think in square miles. The miles of streams, and that includes perennial streams, all the miles of streams that were charted in the Milwaukee River Basin report, 597 miles of streams. Very water-rich area we live in. And the number of dams, I like saying dams, about 70 dams that were logged in here, but there were so many more in that old report that were logged in that might have been ripped out, that were put in and that were flooded out or destroyed during flooding. It was fascinating to find out how many dams there were really put on this river and what a source of energy this river was, not only from a fishery standpoint, but just from the sheer force of water going through these dams. Okay, so I have just a few photos of restorations, removals, today's landscape, etc. I think many of you might be familiar with this site. This is the Kiln Dam. It is in Grafton, Wisconsin. It is the site of lime kiln was used. There's a quarry, a bedrock quarry nearby. And can I switch? How do I go back and I do a new share? Can I just hold up my camera, something to the camera quick?
You could probably try.
Okay. Well, or I'll just hold it up. No, I won't. I'll do it later. Anyway, this bedrock, this Silurian bedrock, was a really good source for making cement. And the way that you made cement was essentially just to drive off in these old buildings on these lime kilns in the buildings. You'd heat it up, drive the water off, and it was a great source of material for making cement. There were nearby quarries in Grafton, in Cedarburg. They were quarries of this Silurian bedrock, which also sometimes called the Niagara Dolomite, a Silurian dolomite. It's a fascinating connection to New York State because the Niagara Dolomite, that cuesta, that escarpment goes all the way over and around the Great Lakes, over to Niagara Falls. Slowly I turn, I had to say that. But at any rate, this lime kiln was a source of this lime kiln dam was a source of energy for many things in the Grafton area. And I wanted to show these pictures of what happens. These people in Grafton actually wanted the lime kiln dam removed. So it was really kind of cool. This was on the lower right-hand corner here. This is a picture of where there would have been a wheel attached to generate energy. Over here on the upper, curses, on the upper left-hand corner, that's where there was still an embankment, but you can see this bedrock in Grafton. You can also see where the river's been restored looking downstream. A couple of other things about this highly fractured bedrock is that in the Grafton area, we also had, because there was also, when you have a hole, you might as well fill a hole. There was also a landfill there, kind of a landfill there. There was fill material there that leaked contamination into the aquifer. It went through fractures in the bedrock into private wells across the river. And also in Grafton, some of the municipal wells were contaminated, but not by this, but such is the life of fractured bedrock. Yeah, that works. So I had Roger go to River Edge Nature Center because you have a couple of things going on at River Edge Nature Center that are really cool from a river restoration standpoint. You have this stream bank restoration program, which is so cool, and it helps to restore just this really nice small part of the Milwaukee River stream bank and stabilize it. You have this early recreational use by Oscar Grady, who constructed all of these structures, checking my time, all of these structures at River Edge. This is the site of the mushroom, as many of you are familiar with. And he was hoping that this land would be used for recreational purposes. And it is indeed today, but not quite in the way he probably envisioned. In the center, lower corner, you can see the area where normally this time of year, there would be an intake for the sturgeon water. But unfortunately this year, I don't think we have a sturgeon tank, right, Mary? So
No, not this year.
We don't have it. But we have this lake sturgeon reintroduction project, which has been ongoing for how many years?
14, well, this would have been the 15th year.
Would have been the 15th year. This was not where the sturgeon were reintroduced, but they were bred here, bred on the Milwaukee River water so that they could imprint and come back upstream, enjoy this beautiful restored bank, but they were released into Lake Michigan. Let's go here. We also have other cleanups, and this is the site of a dam on Cedar Creek in Cedarburg, on the upper left-hand corner of this stream. Here in Cedarburg, this stream was restored. I'm saying this because there's hope. We go in, we destroy things, and then we have hope. Excuse me. because they removed PCB, contaminated sediment, from Cedar Creek here. And now they've cleaned the stream up. The dam is still there, but it is so much better for wildlife habitat than it ever has been in the past, you know, 100 years. On the lower right-hand corner, there's this beautiful last covered bridge, again, a connection to River Edge. Last covered bridge Park. This is an area where we've done some mussel identification training through River Edge and through Milwaukee River keepers. It's just a beautiful stretch of this tributary. Okay, moving along. How many minutes did I give? Okay, good. Okay, so we are now farther north. We're near Cascade. We're on the north branch of the Milwaukee River. We're in Fond du Lac County and Sheboygan County and those, well, Fond du Lac County, Sheboygan County, Upper Washington County. You can see that this is this where I have my cursor is, and it's a heritage area. They're calling the North Branch Milwaukee River Wildlife and Farming Heritage Area. And you can see how different it is from like Cedarburg or Grafton. It's wild, it's wonderful. It's a great place to be. And this road crossing, if you go counterclockwise now to the Milwaukee River North Branch, if you look there, look at how beautiful the Milwaukee River is there. You can see then near Cascade Memorial Park, this is the north branch of the Milwaukee River, and it's just this tiny little piece of energetic stream here, but it's so beautiful. We also took a trip up to Campbellsport Dam, and I will play this. I don't know if you can hear it, but here's my...
This is the Campbellsport Dam.
Yeah.
It's been removed. It was removed in 2011, I think. You see the Milwaukee River here, the free flowing river. Very cool.
So before the dam was removed, they had problems with it being destroyed. It was destroyed by flooding. It was hard to maintain. So it was removed in 2011. And on the upper left-hand side, you can see that the dam was in place from 1846 to 2011. It was used for power there. And I think there was a mill there, a grist mill. There was a grist mill there again, that German heritage comes into place. It was put in place by German immigrants. So it was kind of neat to see this really cool product of a dam removal, that free-flowing river. If you look very carefully, we're here. This is County Stadium. This is the Menominee River. Oh, this is the okay, try not to do that. Okay, this is the Menominee River. And you can see there's this park area here in this very urbanized industrial area. There's this green space that all of us need and crave. This area was all rail yards. You know, a lot of the Menominee River Valley is being restored in this way. The Hank Aaron Trail is along the Menominee River and goes out past County Stadium. It's just a neat place to be. And while it's not as robust a green environment as the northern parts of the Milwaukee River Basin, it's still a green space. This is Estabrook Park. This is the area where I wanted to talk about the gradient, because in all other parts of the Milwaukee River Basin, the gradient is actually pretty steep. And if you were going to put in a dam, it was a really good place to put in a dam and create a lot of good head to flow through your dam and generate power and things like that. But here, because in part the bedrock changes here, some of our youngest bedrock, our youngest bedrock in the state of Wisconsin that we can experience is here. It's a Devonian age group of shales and dolostones that have a few fossils in them. it's a natural, what's called a nick point in the river. And when they put in this Estabrook Dam, I guess it dammed it up pretty much for about 3 miles upstream. That's what I took from my reading anyway. The thing about this Estabrook Dam, Estabrook Park area, is that there was also, because this bedrock was pretty darn close to the surface, there was also a cement company there. And I think it was something like the Milwaukee Cement Company. And they also were using it to make cement, driving off the water and using it to make the cement. Again, when you have a hole, the rule is you have to fill it in with something. So I think this is the site of the Blue Hole. We called it in the department the Blue Hole, and it has had a lot of cleanup work, and yeah, there was some contamination there. I'm gonna switch to the, going around just a little bit too much. I guess I got these out of order, but that's okay. This Thiensville Dam was a site of sturgeon release for quite a while, right, Mary?
Yep, for 6 years, the first 6 years, yep.
Yep, for the first 6 years. And this site is pretty cool. The dam hasn't really been removed, as you can see. Oh, the dam hasn't really been removed, but as you can see from those orange, whatever you call them, but what they did was really something interesting. And I know Will Warzen worked on this, and there were a lot of players that worked on this, to create a fish passage so that the fish could go farther upstream on the Milwaukee River. And it's just another example of where man can kind of help make amends. This is, I'm checking my time, this is the Milwaukee River near the former North Avenue Dam. And this was worked on for a very, very, very long time. The North Avenue Dam, of course, is near the North Avenue in Milwaukee. It's been one of the most populated areas in the city. When it didn't always look like this, back in when I started working for the department back in 1985 and 1986, it was pretty much, I dare say, a cesspool. And it has improved astronomically since then. Those are all new plantings on the river banks there in Milwaukee. They pulled out so much stuff, shopping carts, debris, just to make this a wonderful stretch of stream that you see today. It really is quite beautiful. And as you can see, you know, this area is, you know, they're calling it an arboretum. My husband took this sign. I think it's near the corner of I want to say near Water Street, but I'm not quite sure. But it's a wonderful greenway that's sorely needed for that connection to nature in a city. It was a long time project. Let's see what else we have here. I'm gonna make sure I get through and don't miss. Oh, yay. Okay, I'm almost finished with some of these pictures. So, as you know, I thought this picture of the rainbow was kind of nice, but this is actually near the confluence of these rivers. It's near the Global Water. I think it's called Global Water Center off of Seabook, and on the upper center picture, and in the lower left-hand corner, that's kind of near where the Menominee River joins up with the Milwaukee River. And then down on the corner is actually taken near the Great Lakes Water Institute. And it's actually on the KK River. If you look at the maps, they see it's on Lake Michigan. We'll call it the Milwaukee Harbor area, the Milwaukee estuary, but it looks like it's on the KK River there. Just a good example of, yeah, even if it's paved, at least you can get access to the water. Here, you can see that they're putting in green spaces. The landscape is constantly changing here in Milwaukee. I wanted to list some resources used for this presentation, no guarantees. It's not a academic presentation, so I hope you forgive me for grabbing things. But, you know, I used a lot of the State of the Milwaukee River Basin report. Geological and Natural History website is marvelous. Go to the DNR website. I needed something quick and dirty, the Wisconsin Glacial Landscapes PowerPoint presentation from River Edge Nature Center. I'll get to Tanya Lorgan's contribution in a moment here. And let me see how much time I have. Oh, yeah, I do. And Wisconsin Historical Society website, Department of Health Services websites, First Nations websites, and many, many more. I have some just in case slides, and I think I'll hold off on those. Oh, there's my Silurian dolomite. There you go. So that's what it looks like. And I think I've successfully gone through some stuff, and I have some just in case slides. So I'm going to stop sharing and take any questions if there are any.
Great job, Sharon. Really, really nice. Yeah, it was fascinating to see all those dams and how things have changed so much over the course of time on the river. We do have a couple of questions in the chat, and one comes from Casey. She's really enjoying your slides, so she's wondering if she can use them or you'd share them with her for some other programs. So, you know, kudos. You really did a great job. So this is wonderful. Could you tell us a little bit more about that blue hole? I know even Ed on our staff has stumbled into that area and, you know, saw an otter there. What's so unique about this blue hole?
You know, I fortunately have not had to go on that site. I only knew that it was always on my list of sites to be cleaned up. And what I think, Ed, I could do is send you a link to some information from the department website, Department of Natural Resources website. But I really, you know, because I don't have firsthand knowledge of that site, I just know there was contamination. It's near the river. My colleague, John Kraling, used to swear a lot about, so I know it was a bad site, but I don't know any details.
I did some research initially when I stumbled on it and got a hold of, I think it was the DNR. I was a handful of people. I just kind of wrote a bunch of emails to, like, what is this thing? What is it here?
Yeah.
And we happened to be fishing that day. I didn't catch anything, and we saw that river otter. But from what I was told, after it was done being a cement plant or whatever it was that time, it was, I think, some kind of a quarry or something, and it had all these holes in the walls, and it used to be a swimming hole for quite a while, until at some point, I want to say in the 40s or 50s, someone died swimming there somehow. Maybe they got caught in one of these holes, like in the walls, and ended up dying. And after that, it was like kind of off limits. And the person said, you know, I really wouldn't recommend, if you go fishing there again, I wouldn't recommend eating anything that you catch there.
Well,
okay, cool. We'll just hike by it.
Right. Well, here's the thing about eating fish advisories, and from my work with the DNR, take the fat off the fish. One-time consumption isn't going to kill you. You know, usually the exposure rate is 70 years at some level. You're not going to eat fish every day from there, but you're probably fine. But I think that, you know, I really wish I could have researched that a little bit more, but I can certainly, you know, contact some people and find out for you.
It's no big deal. It was just a neat spot. I was like curious about for a day or two, and found out it was kind of contaminated. It was like, okay, plenty of places to go. No need.
And it's, exactly.
Anybody know why it's called the blue hole and not some other color?
I don't know. Maybe the water. Who knows? Who knows? But
so, Ed, do you want to unmute everybody so that others, if they want to? But if you muted yourself, you need to unmute yourself. If we muted you, then we can release your mute button. But otherwise, you have to do it for yourself. Other questions about, I'm kind of curious, how many dams remain on the river from, say, West Bend
Oh,
all the way down into Milwaukee? An important
well,
question for our Sturgeon project.
well, here's what I can kind of share. Let me share my screen again. So I have this information, and it's public information, and Mary, I can certainly send that to you, but it's a Word document that was sent to me. And these are all the different projects that have been, here we go, all the different projects, and there's another whole page of projects. I think there were 34 different lines of projects that, you know, like that have been done on the Milwaukee River. There are a lot of dam removals, but there are also other restoration projects. So what I can certainly share this with you because it's public information. So
Sure.
yeah.
So as far as we know, I mean, there were 9 dams on the river between here and Milwaukee when we started the Sturgeon project 14 years ago, 15 years now. And as far as we know, there's only one impediment left, and that is in Grafton. Do you know there's anything about the status of that dam?
Which Grafton Dam is that?
Well, they removed I think it's the Chair Factory Dam was in Cedarburg, correct?
It looks
No,
like
that was in Grafton.
that was in
Grafton then.
Grafton. Yep.
So that's the one that remains then, I guess.
The
I'm going
one
to
right at Highway 6, just south of Highway 60.
Right. Yeah, that was in Grafton. Well, the Lime Kiln Dam is removed. Is that north or south of that dam?
That's south.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So that was removed.
And the Chair Factory Dam was at Falls Road in Grafton.
Right.
And that dam was removed about 15 years ago. And the residents of Grafton had a referendum about removal of the dam, which is the Mill Pond Dam, as they called it, back in about 2005. And it was either repair it or rebuild it or take it down. And the referendum was passed to keep the dam and repair it.
Yeah.
And so it has been repaired, and it, as this point in time, it will not be removed, and a fish ladder was not put in.
Yeah.
Yeah, we were part of the hearings back in those days, and it was brought up again more recently because my wife was on the staff at the time, so probably around 2010. But at that point, the DNR was involved, and they, even though there could have been a removal, they felt that that was the last place they could stop the round goby from making it up the river. So they determined that it would not be removed at that point. And they had discussed putting in a fish elevator, which would have allowed the fish to come in. They would have sorted the fish. Those that were carriers of VHS would be put back and sent south. Those that weren't carriers would be sent north, but it was so expensive and time consuming that it was all kind of put on the back burner for a long while. So we were told it would be brought back up in 2019, but never came back up again.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's, you know more, Ed, than I know about the dams in Grafton, you know, what's still there, but I can certainly forward this list of what I got from Tanya. Yeah.
Renee's desk is the one with the stop sign.
So other questions? Anybody else? Other things you want to know about the Milwaukee River? Fascinating that there's so many effigy mounds around yet.
Yeah.
I think, well, we've taken, the TNs did a kind of a field trip over to the Effigy Mounds a number of years ago, right after they had done the renovations there. And it was quite exciting to see the changes they have made in that park and the improvements and you know, all of the kiosks with all the information.
Right.
It was fun to go over and read all that in addition to hiking the grounds, which look a lot different than they did 20 years ago. They cut down a whole lot of oak trees, which a lot of people felt that was rather a bold step to make, but if they wanted to preserve the mounds, they had to.
Right.
We were also the River Edge TNs and staff been on that Menominee River site as well when they were planting a lot of the prairie, you know, along there. It really is impressive.
Yeah.
It's the the site of the Urban Ecology Center. We went over to visit them, and then they took us on a tour of that whole area over into the, Miller Brewery area, across the river there. Pretty cool.
Yeah. Yeah, it's pretty cool. I mean, so often these days we hear about the bad things, we're hearing discouraging news, but, I think that we're making amends on the river,
sure.
to the river. It
Sure.
really is good. It's a good thing.
Yeah. I know Urban Ecology is heavily involved in that Arboretum area too, with the
Yep.
plantings and things that are going on there.
Yeah.
Pretty exciting.
I didn't show Urban Ecology Center for this presentation.
It's okay. We're partners with them in a lot of ways.
Yep, I know. So,
Yep. Some of this staff has actually canoed all the way from the Horicon area and taken in different days the entire Milwaukee River all the way down into the city of Milwaukee. And it does look like a rural river in many ways, even in the North Avenue area that, with all of the vegetation all the way along the way, it feels like you're in northern Wisconsin.
Yeah.
And the water quality has improved quite a bit to the point where you don't have alewives floating everywhere, and the smell is good, and you could even swim in it now.
right. And that was always the goal, wasn't it? Fishable, swimmable.
Right, exactly.
So,
Other questions? We've got a lot of other water people involved here. Maybe Patricia or Casey has something to say. They're involved with our CRP program. Do you want to tell them a little bit about that program in case people don't know what we're doing with the communities? One of you? There you go, Casey.
Yeah, excuse me. I also have allergies, so I've got the same in my throat. So yeah, the Community Rivers program was started 3 years ago, and our initiative is very similar to what was previously mentioned: swimmable, fishable waters. But we're really trying to engage the northern municipalities along the northern branch of the Milwaukee River, and activate those citizens to make small changes in their homes or on their properties if they're property owners, to improve water quality. So things like native plantings, but also really simple things like installing rain barrels, or reducing the use of pesticides, or even just coming to help out with invasive species removal at some of the public parks and places. So we are currently, this year we've expanded the program to include the villages of Fredonia and Kewaskum. And we have Newburgh, Saukville, and the village of Grafton as returning veterans of the program. And having that municipal buy-in at that level to really become a healthy river community is pivotal in that programming and in that effort. So some exciting things we're working on that kind of relate to Sharon's topic today is that the Community Rivers program has really started a strong connection with the Saukville Area Historical Society, or as some people might know it more commonly, it's the Crossroads Museum in Saukville on Mill Street. I think it's Mill Street. The ladies there are extremely passionate and have done a great job of cataloging stories in their minds of how citizens and people used to use the river, from everything from button mills and using mussel shells to make those pearly buttons that you see on some dress shirts and things, to the backwater areas where they used to swim, or areas that used to ice over and they used to ice skate. They've got great stories in their minds that they've passed down, from their parents, their aunts, their fathers. But right now they're really struggling with cataloging those stories and getting them into a computer system. We're talking about ladies who are 75 and older. And how, the Community Rivers program has made an effort very recently this summer to help them catalog not just like artifacts that they have, but stories that they have. So that's been really kind of a new thing, and it's really cool because as much as it's called the Saukville, Historical Society, many of us on this conversation know this already, but we're really all connected by water.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, and there is nothing more that tells you that than as you start to dive into relationships that maybe you didn't know you would start to form, which is kind of how I think we feel about the Historical Society. And it's just incredible that they know, well, these people owned this farm across from that, and they used to do this, and they were on the river for years. And it's really cool to dive into that history, to learn more about how we can do better today. And I think that's true on so many levels, but for this lens, water quality.
It's wonderful. You want to tell us a few of the activities you're doing with those communities? I know that you and Patricia and the other interns are quite busy this summer doing a whole lot of knocking on doors and getting the people of those communities aware that the river is even there.
Yeah, so actually this week is a pretty big week for CRP activities as we're, more fully embracing summer. Last week we conducted a rain barrel workshop, and we were able to get 15 rain barrels disseminated to homeowners in the Northern Milwaukee River watershed. So they're installing just little pieces of green infrastructure to help with stormwater control. On Friday evening, we are headed out to Wabadonia Park to engage with Fredonia residents, and we're going to tube the river.
Fun.
So we're throwing some big tubes in, and we've got people registered that are anywhere from, in their upper 50s to age 8, and they're ready to float down a river that they may have never even thought of getting in. Yeah, and then Saturday we are doing a kayaking event up in Kewaskum.
Whoa.
And we're getting a number of Kewaskum residents out on the river there. So those are coming up soon. The other thing I want to point out is that later this summer, we are going to be hosting a community conversation for all of the residents that may live in one of the healthy river communities. So Saukville, Grafton, Newburgh, Fredonia, Kewaskum, to join in the conversation of what does it look like? What does success look like when what does it mean to you to have access to healthy waters? Because for us to just go into the communities and tell them what we think success looks like, that's really not the same. We all have our own measure of what it feels like or what it looks like to be successful in our own properties, in our own homes, in our own lives. And we really want residents to feel empowered and have the buy-in to understand that they really can make a difference when it comes to water quality in the Milwaukee River watershed.
So true. So true. And all the things you're doing to get them involved is what's going to, really keep them interested and get them even more excited about the river and keeping it clean and all the various different kinds of measures that they can take, to protect it and now and into the future. So this is setting, really a nice foundation for that. You guys are doing a wonderful job. It's a big job, but, kudos to all of you for the effort you're putting into that. So that's the hope, is that when this program is over someday down the road, that the community will take on the task of caring for the river and not depend on River Edge or their legislators or whatever. It's their job just as much as everybody else to take care of the river. So how about any other questions? Unmute yourself and feel free to ask a question or two of any of the people. Sharon is still, ready to answer whatever you might want to know about the river. She's shaking her head, but she did a great job. We really learned a lot about the history of the various different groups that, that use the river and why they use the river, and, all the dams and, the geology of the river. It was a great tour. We learned a lot in that 1 hour's time. Questions, anybody? See if we got any new ones in the chat here. Well, if we don't have any more questions, and if you do think of something after the fact, feel free to email me and I will shoot an email to Sharon. We'll get an answer for you. But we do appreciate you attending all these tea and topics over the course of the last couple of months. We are going to take a break from the tea and topics for the summer, but we aren't going to give up. We do want you to come out. We have started a new program that's called Strolling with a Naturalist, and they will start in July. And they will be offered the first, or second and fourth Tuesday and Thursday of the month. And we will have, it just a casual stroll, not a forced hike anywhere. You're just gonna take a trip on some of the more popular trails, and we'll be looking for different things to focus on each time. Some of the focuses will include butterflies, dragonflies, the wildflowers, wild edibles, you name it. Well, as we get into the fall, we'll be looking at the colors and so on. But we do hope that you'll come out for that in place of, these Zoom meetings for the summer months. We just know that, people are looking for opportunities, and these will be small groups. You'll be outside the entire time. They'll be safe, from that perspective, and but pre-registration will be required. So you will need to get onto our website and register.